Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful. When the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun. Good morning, everybody. It is the 13th FOMC week, December, and I have to say, I feel like this is like deja vu, because what was it, 2018, 2019? Highly anticipated Fed meeting in December that did not turn out the way that I anticipated that it would. And so after seeing the way that the market reacted to the inline CPI print on Friday, I am a little bit, let's say, cautious here today coming into the FOMC. So let's come over to our charts. Hopefully I got everything. Yeah, I think I got them all set up here, right? So they liked the CPI print in the equities, and we are just a few points off of the all-time highs. You know, we should come in here and make sure we draw with our nifty little tool the event. Where was it? So it was like right now, 6:30. Okay. CPI. Okay. So you can see here in the treasuries. Now the treasuries, they went quite a bit higher off of that news. It does look though that, like, let's see here, the 10th was Sunday, wasn't it? No, the 10th was the Friday. Well, that's a little confusing. I wonder if I need to reload all historical data. You know what? I'm also going to have to reload. I need to roll over ES now, the main ES. That's a little bit better. I was going to say, they took off on that CPI. There you go. There's the up move. They did retrace some of it eventually going into the close. But now here, since we restarted this week, they've been on the upturn. So this movie here, by the way, I mean, I lost a little bit of money on here, way more than I should have. I'm really mad about it. I want to talk about that a little bit later. I think I beat myself up a little bit too much over that, but they were really pulling out all their tricks to get liquidity. So this really felt like this wasn't just like a reaction to it. Like somebody was actively pushing from that news, which I think is kind of interesting. Another thing that we should talk about is that over the weekend, Morgan Stanley, who was the last one that was kind of saying like the Federal Reserve isn't going to increase the taper or raise or any of that, they capitulated. So now all of the analysts think that they will double the pace of the taper and that there will be at least 2 rate increases next year, if not 3. Yet the treasuries are moving up. Okay, so that's a little curious. We'll talk about maybe why that might be. Here in the oil, well, you know, they tested 73, but since then they've come back. There's been some positive, we call it positive news on the Iran front, that maybe their negotiations are making some headway, but we'll see. I'm awfully skeptical about that one. Natural gas taking off a little bit because it has been cold. I think that all of my charts need to have their data reloaded because they're not loading the data because I shut down. Copper kind of middling. Now I think that the one that moved the most was the dollar here. The dollar. So you can see the dollar just got absolutely creamed off of that CPI news. And since then they've been coming back. So the dollar at the very least thinks that the reaction off of the CPI was overdone, right? You discovered the channel last week. Oh, hey. Cool. Well, thank you for coming in. I always wonder sometimes, like, is it worth like promoting the stream? Because it seems like it seems like with every little bit that I do, that my audience just sees that one side and they don't go to the other sides of my content. Like my guys on that watch me on TikTok only watch me on TikTok and don't go to my YouTube channel. And the people that are on the YouTube channel don't go to Discord. And the people that are in Discord, they don't go and watch any of the video. and so I wonder, like, we have almost 7,000 subscribers, right? We're like 6.8 now. But obviously most of those subscribers don't come and watch the live stream. So I've always wondered, like, well, maybe they just never going to. So it's nice to see somebody come in and say, oh yeah, I watch your content and I wanted to come see it live. So that's good. You should ask questions. Well, I'm honestly not liking the behavior here so far. So, I would have expected them to maybe middle around. Like, I don't necessarily expect them to be picking a clear direction right off of the start or anything like that. But I would be expecting them to at least maybe be stirring the pot a little bit or something like that. But what we've seen so far kind of suggests that they're just, they're not really very interested in moving it right now. So are we going to have this situation where the treasuries just be really quiet going into the FOMC? Okay, so let's fix up a few things here, huh? Well, first of all, let's do the roll. Yeah, we got lots of things to roll over. Yes. So here's, I was saying, well, we need to talk about this and this thing. So let's talk about this a little bit more. In 2018, 2019, was it December of 2018 or was it December of 2019? I'm having a hard time remembering. Let's come back here and look. I like to use TradingView to look at something like way further back, because in NinjaTrader you have to like reload the data. It's annoying. So let's do it like, let's show ES on the main data series on a daily basis, and then we'll add ZN underneath of it. There we go. Oh, that's not what we wanted at all. I want in a new pane. There we go. So this right here needs to delete it. There we go. Okay. So I'll make it bigger. All right. So it was the S&P 500. Yes, it was right here. It was December of 2018. Do you see that right there? I'm covering it up a little bit. We'll move it back over here. Okay. So in December of 2018, and maybe let's zoom in on it a little bit. Okay. So they started to have some difficulty earlier, like October to November. And then in December, and it was really starting right here. Do you see how it like starts to accelerate down? That was when Powell said that, they were going to raise rates. That's not when he said. That's when they raised rates another quarter of a point, when a lot of people on the market thought that they wouldn't because of this weakness that we had. So the market felt that the Federal Reserve was tightening into some economic weakness, and the markets threw a complete fit. Only to then bounce back. But then note that through this whole thing, the bonds were rising. In fact, here they raised rates. It was like Powell raised rates and the bonds moved higher. And then this kind of started a move where the bonds inexplicably moved higher for most of the year, leading to a pretty strong bull market. And then COVID happened, because people were saying in the treasuries, like, because I was saying, like, hey, maybe these guys are just overreacting and eventually they're going to come in line, something like that. But then COVID happened and we kind of never found out, right? That's how that played out. So this is why I'm suddenly a little curious. Like, all the analysts are saying that they're going to increase the pace of the taper and they're going to raise rates at least 2 times. That should mean higher rates in the treasuries. That should mean that 2% in the 10-year is not far off. And yet the treasuries are buying somewhat, and in the overnight action, they've been up somewhat. How is that possible? Right? But maybe we're going into a same kind of a situation where the markets are concerned about, some weakness in the first and second quarter of next year. I think that they're kind of saying that like a lot of these supply chain problems are going to be alleviated after Christmas. And you might even, that these deep inflationary prints are going to cool off, and that the Federal Reserve will ultimately back off of doing 2 rate increases next year. But none of the analysts are saying that. Everybody says that they're going to do 2 or 3. So I don't know who's making that bet, but I with the way that it's set up, if all of the analysts think that, are pretty much agreed with what the Federal Reserve is going to do, then how does that end up being like a really big sell treasuries event? Like I was hoping that it would be. If this CPI came out and had been hot, then it would have been different. But now that the CPI is not like that, I'm thinking that the risk reward has changed, and that it maybe that the Federal Reserve comes out on Wednesday, and then remember the other banks do it on Thursday, right? Maybe they come out and they say what we expect, but the market doesn't like that. And because the market doesn't like that, treasuries move up because of flight to safety. Because that's basically what happened in 2018. You catch my drift? So that's kind of what I'm thinking might be going on. Now, for me, if that is the case, then for me, I think that tactically, I'm probably better off, now that CPI print didn't work out, I'm probably better off biding my time and not risking too much on the FOMC. And especially since so far the trade has been pretty light. We'll see. I mean, if somebody wants to make a big meta order come in here, well, there's only 2,000s being put up on the DOM. So I don't know, man. I don't know. It seems like, unless we get like a big meta order selling the treasuries here this morning, I think that I'm probably going to hold off and not really put on any risk until January. Can you tell me which broker you use? Can an Indian trade in this market? I believe that you can. I'm not. So I think that for you, your best choice might be AMP futures, or let's see here. Is it Dorman? I think Dorman seems to be okay with the foreign countries. But you can definitely trade futures outside of the United States. It kind of depends. So in India, I think you're probably going to be okay. One of the things, though, I want to be really clear. Anytime that somebody's thinking about getting into futures, I just want to make it clear that the most likely scenario for you from day trading is that you're going to lose money. I'm operating at a loss this year. I write it off, right? So my main, and that was kind of the thing that I was getting at. It was like I need to think about this and like, okay, I'm beating myself up too much because I took a loss, and it was a bigger loss than I probably should have done in that situation. I'm still doing pretty good. I've still made some good calls, and we can just as easily find trades that will push us the other way. I mean, we had trades earlier in the week that were the other way, right? And but I think for me, the thing that's probably more important and that I need to focus more of my emotional energy into is you guys, right? Like the main thing here is that we have some really valuable content, and I don't think that we're really putting it out there the way that we should. Like, not enough people are benefiting from it. I think that we could have a really positive influence on the retail trading community, and that doesn't mean that people will make money, but it'll be better than what it was. And we need to work harder in that respect. So that means that we need to, our indicators, because I put it as like the elite package. There are some things in there that are elite, but there are a lot of things in there that I consider like essential, that are like the platforms don't have and they're essential. So I think that we should try and get that out a little bit better, that, hey, these are some essential tools that everybody can use, and that you should be watching what the spreads are doing, for instance. You should be watching the dollar index, for instance. So we'll work on those. And I am getting a nice camera, so that will help. And hopefully at some point we'll be able to make more content. Like there's the stuff that I say to you guys here, especially at the beginning of the stream, that not very many people get to hear that. And we should probably be repurposing it so that, and distributing it more widely. So that's like my first thing. And then my second thing is that I've just got to be like more cool about it, because when I am taking a loss, I think like it's expected. And I've been letting myself get a little bit too frustrated by it lately. You know what I mean? Now, part of that is that there have been some stupid people coming in and that frustrate me too. But hopefully we're done with all of that. Yeah, because I was thinking the other day, I was like, I need to choose something, I need to change something. But then when I really started to think about it, I was like, no, we've already kind of planned things out. And we need to just go full bore into the things that we know that we had planned. And one of those things was getting the camera. So I because it was, it was a little rough. The oil kind of pushed into some of the profits that we were using to buy the camera. But I figured out a way to get the camera. I ordered the camera. So that should really improve the quality of the YouTube videos. You're a good person. Don't think about any. Oh, well, I know that, but I think what I need to, like, when I think about it and I'm like, okay, there's all these different things that I can work on, because I don't feel like, one of the things that's really frustrating is to work really, really hard and then not feel like you're being adequately compensated for your work. And I definitely feel like that a lot. But at the same time, I'm in a certain place and I'm not perfect. And there's so many things that I know that we can improve on, right? One of the things that I'm really excited that we're going to have time to work, because I get the next 2 weeks off. Can you believe that? I get the next 2 weeks off. We may continue to stream until 9:30 if like stuff is going on. If it keeps trading like this, we might just end. We might just end at the normal time, though. But and then I'm going to work primarily on some machine learning stuff. I've got a book. Oh, geez, where did that come from? There's a fundamentals of applied probability and random processes. So there's some good stuff in there, and that's going to be like schoolwork. So I've got some serious work to do on there. We're still writing the scripts for the videos. I'm not going to be recording the videos until after Christmas. Well, basically until the next year, because we're getting some equipment that's going to make a big difference in there. So the TensorFlow, the statistics, and then we're going to fix up the indicators, because I really think we have like an essential suite. Hold on. I don't know how. Maybe I should split it up. Maybe I should have like an essential suite and an elite suite, is what I'm thinking about. And the basic suite, anybody can pay $100 and you'll get. And that's kind of how I'm leaning. Yeah, an essential suite, something that everybody that owns NinjaTrader will want to get, is what I think. And we do that. And again, the purpose of that will be that we should be able to use those resources to put more effort into making better videos. Because if we can get if we can make enough to buy a video editor or make enough that I can do it full time, that would be like so huge. And if I can make enough that I can like spend more time programming, that will be huge. There's so many things, right? Like there's so many more things. So it would be one thing if I was like doing absolutely everything that I could, and I knew that I was doing absolutely everything, and I was still having trouble. I think though that the biggest thing that I can do though is I just got to be cooler, man. I don't think that I am a naturally cool, everybody wants to hang out with you kind of guy. I don't know if you can like just become that kind of like charismatic person or not. It's certainly going to be a lot of work on my part because of my problems with attention and stuff. But I also think that if there's anything that I can work on, that's probably the biggest thing that's holding me back. Like when I get super nervous, that hurts my trading when I get super nervous. And I think it hurts the stream when I'm super nervous or, I'm anxious or I'm mad at people, right? And what I need to do is I need to keep it fun. Like my channel, my channel content shouldn't be sets trading. My channel content should be content for traders. Shouldn't necessarily be trading, but it should be for traders. And that's where we need to move things. Yeah? What do you think? Everyone has to struggle. I'm sure about this. You're going to achieve all your goals. Well, thank you very much. I think so too. I feel that we have made so many significant breakthroughs and strides in trading that the majority of retail traders don't know that, it's inevitable that we're going to progress. Okay, hold on a second. Here's somebody at the door. That's weird. Good morning, Kyle. Do you trade in crypto? I don't day trade in crypto. To be honest, that the cryptocurrency market has been really frustrating me because from the metrics that I look at, they've been very overvalued for a very long time. And I see a lot of excess in the cryptocurrency market. And when I make content about it, I don't really feel like people respond. It's like that segment only cares that number goes up, And now that the number's not going up, they're not necessarily flocking and going like, oh, what's going on? Tell me what we should really be doing, I've kind of been watching to see if they would fill me at 475. It looks like that some people have been filled there, but anyways, I'm worried that we're going to have another crash in the cryptocurrency market. I'm kind of wondering. I'm not saying this is like a prediction, but I do think that it's in the range of possibilities that Bitcoin has already reached this cycle high. When you look at the FOMC and everything, they're going to be raising rates. And so at least the demand coming from cryptocurrencies for central bank, flight hedging against the dollar, that's going to be less if interest rates are rising, right? And you can see it as this has turned over the last few months, you've seen the interest in Bitcoin die down. Like some of the institutional interest in Bitcoin has died down. I think Ethereum, Bitcoin, Sol, Cardano will be there for last long. I'm concerned that of those. Okay, so Sol I think has a bright future. Sol and Ethereum. Ethereum has the fees in Ethereum are getting really ridiculous right now. It's like what, $25 to do like anything to pay for the gas. It's really ridiculous over there right now. But Sol is a smart coin. I mean, it still has smart contracts and they've done stuff, but it solves a lot of the inefficiency and environmental concerns with Bitcoin. Cardano, on the other hand, I honestly I have no interest in Cardano. I think that they made a lot of decisions, particularly like making it in Haskell, that really make me question the effectiveness of the project, like the people that are running things over there. And not only that, but like they haven't done anything. Like they finally released a test net, and it was basically like what Ethereum has. So I feel that if there is anything that's going to get walloped during a Bitcoin crash, that it will be Cardano, because I just really do not feel, based on the strength of the project, that Cardano should be a top 10 currency. Sol maybe, but Cardano, I'm like, okay. But so somebody, well, one of the things I think I got to respond to TikTok, somebody asked me what they thought about Sol, and because I was saying Bitcoin sucks, right? It's just not very effective. And so they say, well, Sol. And I see where they're going, because Sol solves a lot of those problems, right? Can you tone it down a bit? That's funny, dude. No, I'm pretty sure he's joking. He's like, no, you're so nice to him. Wow. So you guys are always so nice. I appreciate it. Hey, so what happens if you get, let's call it perfect Bitcoin, okay? Maybe it's Sol, maybe it's something else, but let's say it's perfect Bitcoin. It's fast. It can handle a lot of transactions, and it doesn't require a lot of electricity. So it solves all of those problems, right? Then what? Well, at that point, though, it's like perfect Bitcoin versus Fed coin is what I will call it, okay? The central bank digital currency that the Federal Reserve is talking about putting out, okay? So perfect Bitcoin versus Fed coin, who wins? Well, I think in that situation, perfect Bitcoin sticks around, but I don't think that it'll be even half as popular as the Bitcoin maximalists think that it will be. Like this whole idea that there'd be this huge economy and that the Bitcoin will become the world currency and stuff. I don't think that it will work that way, because you still have the dual problems of, one, that the government wants to control the currency, and two, that Bitcoin is deflationary. So those two things conspire to work against Bitcoin, where you're still going to have like big bubbles and crashes, right? And that's going to make people worry about it, especially once Bitcoin is mined out, right? When Bitcoin is mined out and you don't have as strong of deflationary impact to get price up and create these bubbles, and then on top of that, you got to remember that a lot of this move up has been because of Tether. So okay, so Charles Kang asks, remember transitory inflation, they may hint at tapering or raising rates, but I don't think they'll actually follow through. Okay, so let me walk you through how this is going to happen, right? Because when the news hits on Wednesday, okay, it's probably not going to come in the form that you may anticipate if you haven't been through this before, okay? So the first thing is that they're going to state in the statement what their schedule is going to be, like how much treasuries are going to buy each month. So I don't know what it is right now off the top of my head, but we need to know like what is their current pace of asset purchases, so that when we hear what the new pace of asset purchases are, we know how much they're tapering. We anticipate that they're going to buy half as much, that they're going to start buying half as many treasuries as they were. Okay. So remember, they buy treasuries every month, and tapering is basically reducing how much they buy every month. Okay. So that's what that is on that side. On how many interest rate increases they're going to have in this meeting, we should get the dot plot. Okay. Where all of the individual board members say, at this meeting what they think at the end of that meeting what the interest rate will be. So it's really like the governor's predictions of what interest rates will be. And so we'll see. And the big point of contention, I think, here will be whether it's 2 or 3, because some people may start to price in it at 3 and that we'll have to raise rates in March, right? Now, to the transitory inflation theory, okay, here's the issue with that. Okay, so Powell came out and he said it's transitory. I think that was a foolish way of describing things, but I don't know how else you explain it to the public. But the real issue here is this: there are things that are creating inflation that are not necessarily tied to the money supply and things like that. Or at least they don't appear to directly be tied to the money supply. I think that in many respects they are, because that stimulus created a lot of demand for goods, right? Like, people have been buying stuff. Amazon has been doing really, really well. And Amazon would not be doing as well without that stimulus that Biden passed at the beginning of his term, right? And so now that stimulus is winding out, there are a lot of people saying that we may already be at peak inflation. Like, that's kind of what a lot of dissenters. I don't know how popular this opinion is, but there appears to be a significant portion of people that think that last print was peak inflation, and that the prints going forward are going to be smaller. You get what I'm saying? So, the question then is, okay, so if we get that slowdown, how dramatic will it be? Because some people think that we're going to have a 10 to 20% decline in stocks in March through June, right? And if that happens, and I don't think that the market is pricing that in, but if that happens, then I think that there's a really good chance that the Federal Reserve would back off of raising rates in June. I think that they're going to do at least one next year. But the 2 to 3, in order for them to do 2 to 3, we're going to have to continue seeing hot inflation prints. So it really still does come down to how transitory is transitory. Because some people still think that it's or I would say, because when you look at the treasuries, everybody's saying, well, this flattening is indication that the Federal Reserve is making a policy mistake. There's certainly some people making that bet, but I think that the larger thing that's happening here, because when you see the spreading, it is most emphasized in the 30-year part of the curve. And that says to me that the market does not believe that these high inflation prints are going to stick around. They think that by 2023, that we're going to be back to spot 2% month over month, and back in a deflationary environment. And if we get back into that deflationary environment, then yeah, probably they keep rates low. I think that you need to raise them at least once, but it may be the case that they raise interest rates once and then they don't raise them again for a really long time. I mean, that's what happened in 2008, right? It just kept getting, or after 2008, it just kept getting pushed back, right? So we'll see. But right now, given the current information that we have right now, I don't see any way that you can say that they're not going to raise rates next year, right? It's just, we know the range of possibilities. Things are going to change by then, and that's where they could necessarily change. I mean, the other place that they could change is that the high inflation rates persist. And if we continue to get, these spot 6, spot 7 prints, then they're definitely gonna like raise rates in March, right? So, but that's where, again, speaking tactically about this Wednesday, originally I was thinking they should be much higher than they are. Rates should be much higher than they are, and the only reason they're not is because of Omicron. Well, I'm not so sure that the calculus is the same anymore. I could maybe justify buying one spot 475 right now, but they're not really. I think that we might get a move based off of correlations, but I'm not seeing the activity here. There is a little bit of selling coming into the 10-year at the moment. But we'll see. Because what I think we're going to get is either they rates rise into the FOMC, or everything is just dead. And at the moment, it's been 30 minutes. If there was a large meta order, they probably would have started executing it, but we could get another large meta order coming in here either now or before the S&P 500 opens for the equity guys doing something. So let's just kind of see. I get why everybody's skeptical, because you don't know anything else, right? I don't know anything else. Everything I've ever known is, they're going to raise interest rates, and then, the economy, the stock market declines even just a teeny little bit, and they're like, oh, wait, we were just kidding. And then the one time that they didn't, the one time that Powell was like, nah, you guys will be fine, and they raised interest rates, they eventually had to back off. Like, they ended up taking it off. Omicron virus is less harmful as compared to others. That's certainly the case too. It really looks to me that the market overreacted to those initial Omicron virus headlines. 100%. 100% true. So see, I'm looking there at 476 in the 10-year micro, and I'm thinking, if I were to put a bid there, do you think they would hit into me? I think that they might. Is there a rule for the maximum amount that can be bought or sold on the bid or ask? I don't think so. So like, it is quite common actually for somebody to come in and just buy everything that's offered. So if you use like the jigsaw reconstructed tape, there's a feature that lets you highlight a fill, right? It's called a sweep, right? So you can color it differently if it's a sweep. I think you can even change the settings so that it will only display if it's a sweep, but I could be wrong. Reconstruct trains. Thought that there was a way to only show sweeps, but I guess not. But especially in ES, you'll see that there are times where it's just like they'll sweep it, and it happens a lot more than you'd think. So, there are like limits, I think. Retail brokers do have position limits. Okay. There are like limits in terms of like how much any one individual can buy, but those numbers are way higher than like what is at an individual level, right? So just remember that there's like 2,000 being put at every price here in the 10-year, but somebody like, especially if it was like a sovereign wealth fund, they're going to buy like 60,000 contracts, right? Like the amount that they buy is actually really quite insane. And this is why markets are very inelastic. This is that the demand for the liquidity is way higher than the liquidity is able to supply. You don't see it when you're just watching the DOM here at one at a time, but then when you get a big meta order comes in and it moves, and then it's like really obvious that like, orders have a huge impact on price. Won't affect as the market was. Yeah, no, there's no way that Omicron will be as bad as 2020. Like in the oil market in particular, what the oil market was pricing because of Omicron was like insane. But apparently there is also like a really big argument dichotomy going on in the oil market, right? So in the oil market, there's an argument over how much supply OPEC can put out. And a lot of people are saying that OPEC doesn't have the supply that they claim. And that as such, once that starts to become clear, that oil will push a lot higher. And they have good evidence. It's not just like a kind of a, skeptical thing. Like they're going through and doing all this satellite imagery and looking at the wells and everything. And they're saying like, OPEC says that they have this spare capacity that they can just bring online, but like we can't find it. So it was kind of starting to look a little bit bearish there. There was some selling. And now look, they're right back up to the highs at 16. LZB, is that a stock? Is that like a lazy boy stock or something like that? Have you heard the story about the British traders who shorted crude and made 660 million? No, was that recently or was that when oil went to like zero? Oh man, I heard about, I had a couple of people when that happened. I saw some people get blown out, but then there was a lot of people that like just waited for the dust to settle and then took a trade, and it was like, ooh, they made so much money off of it. Oh, you're long ZB. I get you. So I'll note the volume wise, I only saw long volume come into the 5-year. I am seeing the 6J rise here a little bit. So I think that move may have been based on correlations. As such, I still do not see strong evidence of activity in the treasuries of like of a large meta order. I still don't see evidence of a large meta order in the treasury, but that could change. But the volume wasn't super strong, except for in the 5-year, and even in the 5-year, it was only about 2,500 contracts, and they're just following some correlations with the currencies, essentially, is what I'm seeing. Oh, do I not have? Oh, that's interesting. My charts are here a little. I thought I had a bigger. Oh, there it is. Okay, cool. I was like, I thought I had a bigger oil chart. I do. It was hiding. 27 could be a problem. Well, they're gonna fight over this right here, but you can see, like, again, like one of the things that I was saying, right, was, well, if we do make a move, I would expect it to be down. That they're saying that the rates are gonna, but like that's not what's happening, right? Oh, what's the highest lot? I don't know. I've done dumb things in the ES. I can't recall. I try to keep it small. Once I start to get like over 3 contracts, I start to do dumb things. So I don't know what to do about that. I've been so my wife, she was a psychology major. I think that she wanted to do like family counseling, but then a bunch of things happened. Like she had kids mainly, and her ex-husband was more, he needed her to stay home so that he could become a pilot. He made the money. Hey, you do what you got to do, right? But so because to do that, she would need like a master's in psychology, right? But I've been looking at it, and and being a performance coach, like most performance coaches have bachelor's degrees. So if she just, specializes in that kind of performance knowledge, maybe she could become a performance coach and she could coach athletes and business executives, and maybe she could help us here on the YouTube. So we'll see if she picks that up. She thinks that it's a good idea, but it's a lot of work, and that's kind of where you bump into reality, right? But I think what I can do here, because I don't think that I can keep up the studying, especially this. Maybe if I get really into the TensorFlow, that could go all day. But probably what I'm going to do is I'm going to work until lunch and then give her some time and she can study. And then hopefully she can help me sort some of those problems. But like once I get 3 contracts, man, I get nervous and I don't trade as well. And if I take a loss, or especially if I take a big loss, it has a major effect on my ability to think. Like I just don't trade as well. Live action is a high roller, man. He's shown us some big trades over the years. I don't know how he does it. Inflation concerns help drive two-tiered market action. Big caps are still outperforming, but will that relative strength continue into the end of the year? Yes, that is the question, isn't it? I've been surprised at how much some of these small caps have underperformed. Like, if you take out the top 5 biggest stocks in the S&P 500, or in the NASDAQ, I think it is. They were saying that like without those stocks, the NASDAQ is down like 20-30% this year. That's a really massive dichotomy in the market, wouldn't you say? The live action here in chat. See, live action does it right. He takes some big trades. He'll show us some trades from time to time. He never like gets a big ego. He'll make a suggestion like, "Oh, look into this, look into that." He has shown me some strategies that I was kind of like, I need to go back and look at that again. Because I was like, well, we could backtest this. It was like slightly different, but it was like similar enough to things I'd done in the past. So I was like, I don't really feel like this is worth putting time into. But he makes some good trades. I think, though, a big part of live action's success is he trades different instruments. I think that's something that I want to get into eventually too. But I really need to get a larger account if I'm going to trade like micro oil contracts, right? I just love the way you explain things on your beginner playlist. Oh, thank you. Well, could you go into detail what it is that you think, when I come in here? So here, I would really like to know, like, what are the things that we should do on the channel? Because I spent a lot of time this year going, oh yeah, we need more beginner stuff. Okay, so start here, the hardware, best futures platform, trading the news, and then this is good stuff. And then you get into this is all like basic stuff, right? And now I have the it doesn't even show us the latest videos. Oh no, it does right here, order flow. So we got the 3 order flow videos. This spoofing and large orders video, it did really well at first, but I think, hold on a second. I think it kind of died down quickly. We're not going to have a video this week. That's going to really hurt momentum, but. What kind of money management strategy are you using with your trades? I have like a maximum amount that I'm willing to risk in an individual trade in an individual day. And then But I try to take a little bit of profits and let them run. But what will often happen when I get in that kind of nervous mode is that I'll just get into this mode where I just don't want to act. And so it will often be the case where the trade that I'm in, it's going well and it tops off and I don't take anything out of it and then it comes all the way back. That's happened to me a lot, actually. It's really hard because I when I'm at my best, I seemingly have an almost prescient ability at times to tell when it's done and that it's going to come back, right? Especially if you're like scalping and it's on the short term. But once the chemicals from anxiety come in, I freeze is what I do. My strategy seems to be freeze and then, oh, this is, and once it's going your way, it's just like you don't want to do anything. You just want to let it run forever. But the problem is like the kind of trade that I've been looking for, that's going to be like 1 in 20. I probably don't have the account to be doing something like that. No way. Actually, I still get a lot of views on that spoofing in large orders video. 33 a day after almost 2 weeks. Wow. You can always make suggestions. Whether I make fun of you for making a dumb suggestion may yet to be. I don't think you seem pretty smart. I don't think that you're gonna see something dumb. I'm only saying that because the other days people were like arguing. The one that drove me nuts was Gary was saying, oh yeah, like the year-over-year inflation number, that's the one that you should look at. No, like you realize that the way that they get the year-over-year inflation number is they take that month's print, the month-over-month inflation, and then they add the inflation number from the last 12 months to that, and that's how they get that number. So like everything that new that there is to know is in that month over month number. Let's see here. It says 405. This video seems to be performing well, but I would have thought that it would be well over 405 by now. So that's kind of weird. So okay, click-through rate. I could probably use better thumbnails. See the thumbnail for that one. It's a little eh. It's a little eh. Don't know what to do about it, but hey. What about the footprints? Well, so I like the footprints that you can get from NinjaTrader 8 with their order flow if you own a full license, and I like the footprints that Jigsaw has. Footprints are kind of more, it's just order flow, but a higher time frame, I suppose. I think that a lot of people try to show these patterns in footprints and trade off of those that don't necessarily matter. My suggestion is maybe set your buy sell take profit to the area that you would enter a buy sell when you get to a close start trailing. Well, yeah. So like that's the thing is what will happen is we'll be moving, and we'll be moving up, and I'll say to the stream, okay, well there's a little something there, so that might be a spot that it might turn. But I'm gonna try and let it run, and so then. Or maybe I do take some profits there, but then like it reverses and it comes all the way back to my entry. And it's like, there's no way that it comes all the way back to my entry because I have so much profit baked in and the trend is this way, but it'll happen anyways. It's really. Okay. As a retail trader, can you apply machine learning, deep learning, real time to your trading? I don't know. I guess we're going to find out this in the next 2 weeks. So, in order for me to do the machine learning stuff that I want to do, I'm going to have to take it outside of NinjaTrader, which it's probably going to be really frustrating. But I've got a socket thing set up that will push the messages out of NinjaTrader and into Python, and then we're going to do it there. Because even though there are some good machine learning libraries that we could do all of that stuff in C#, they're all relatively new frameworks, and they aren't compatible with the version of .NET that NinjaTrader works on. So that's why we've got to pull it out. So I have yet to have written that part. Somebody wrote something that I think is a good base. So I got to get it working. I don't even think I have Python. Do I have Python installed on this machine? Python. Okay, I do have Python 3.9 on here. That's good. So I just got to like run the thing and see it work and see if we can get something going. But there are a lot of studies on using machine learning, and particularly neural networks that look at the DOM that show some efficacy. So we'll see where we get with that. I'm hoping that some of my technical setups with machine learning added on top of them will make them consistent enough that I'd be willing to risk money with them. We'll see. Now, one of the things is that I can, in the treasury, you can get a pretty good idea of what it's going to do. So like this one, where is it going to turn? Probably not right there, because what happened, they ticked back down, but like only 200 are willing to offer there. So I could actually maybe even buy 19, to be honest with you. This area at 20.5 was a key area from before. So that might be a spot to look at, but we just kind of have to see the orders in the trade they go through. Take a quick scout. Well, a lot of it has to do with my central premise, right? So I was looking to see if they were going to make a big move. I thought that it was going to be short the treasuries going into FOMC. But you're not seeing that. It is rising, which I was a little concerned about. But if it's going to rise, I don't know how high they can rise in one day. That could be a little bit more fraught, right? And yesterday's high was 23. So yeah, there's actually some liquidity up there. Still at 19. So kind of what I will do is I'm looking like, one, I would prefer to use an iceberg or catching the edge to enter with. That's more optimal. Okay, now that they ticked down 2, that's a little bit different. That might actually be something that turns around, right? So I might sell 18. Well, okay, so let's think about this a little bit. Are we seeing any spreads? Maybe a little bit of flattening there, which that concerns me. So one of the things that they did on Friday that I think we got to keep an eye out for was that they used the spreads to stir up liquidity for them. And they were like swinging back and forth quite wildly in ZB, and they were doing that to try and get people to take trades. I think that's what was happening, at least. My head hurts a little bit. I don't know what to think about that. But I'm looking at like liquidity conditions, right? I'm interested in how easily they pull and how much liquidity they stack when it moves, to try and detect areas of low liquidity and high liquidity. You can't see it just with what's resting on the DOM. You have to watch it as it trades over time. So, but I don't look like what most traders will do. I don't look and say, okay, coming over here. I mean, I understand all this stuff and I see it, and it's like I can't I can't necessarily like remove it from my mind, you know. Okay, 130.21 was Friday's value area high. So if we're going to move up, they might try and move to that 21 and then beyond. And you would think that on that situation, it would be like buy and take some profits there and then like wait for a stop out beyond that. And then that's when you want to get out or that sort of a thing. I didn't do any of that sort of stuff because every time I try and test that sort of a thing, it says that, oh, it doesn't work. Doesn't work. Pause the videos of using the machine learning. Well, we'll see. We'll see where it goes. I know so little about it right now. That's part of why I'm getting into the statistics is because you can do all these libraries and use these different methods and stuff and like not actually understand what's going on. And I really want to understand the math behind it. So it's going to be a long time. We'll see how long. For you, Charles, I got three videos, I think it is. 2 more on order flow. One is about conditions, and one is about the empirical properties of markets. Those ones I intend to show a little bit more math. Those are the ones where we're going to get into some of the stuff that I've gotten from the books. That's going to be like advanced knowledge. And then the true nature of markets, where we talk about how markets are inelastic. Volume profile doesn't limit itself to daily value high and value. I only said that because like that's the most obvious that's the most obvious volume profile strategy at the moment, is to anticipate that they're going to go to 130.21. Feel free to email me if you are you really big on the math? Tell you what, there's this book called the guy's name, Jean-Philippe Beauchamp. He is the what do you call it? He is the main editor for the AXRV. Here, let me show you. Where is it? ARXIV. So ARXIV is like a place where people publish studies, and there's a quantitative finance section. And Jean-Philippe Beauchamp is one of the lead editors of that. And he wrote a book called Trades, Quotes, and Prices. Trades, Quotes, and Prices, Markets Under the Microscope. That is very math and theory heavy and is so amazing. So amazing. Because he really digests 30 years worth of research down. That book, like when I think about it, it's like if I was running a firm, like a trading firm, if I was like at Goldman Sachs and I was doing the education there, that would be like the beginner education for traders is reading and understanding that book, because then you understand what we know about markets that we know markets do. Everything that retail traders look at with patterns and all that sort of stuff is kind of iffy. And in fact, what we learned from Trades, Quotes, and Prices is that any of those things that you come out with, it's not like they're not real. It's just they're kind of questionable how much efficacy and longevity they will actually have, because the nature of the market is, from a technical perspective, is to arbitrage out statistical aberrations very easily. It's very easy for the market to arbitrage out a statistical inefficiency, and it's very difficult for the market to arbitrage out an informational inefficiency. I wonder, now that we've gotten this move up, so let's come back and look at the deltas here. Okay, so we're starting to get some more significant volume in the 10-year. So that is kind of looking like stop outs to me. The 30-year is about 1,500 contracts long here from this. The S&P 500 is not doing so hot. So I think that some of this is the S&P. We haven't opened yet in the S&P. Well, that's a very, very curious. Oh, I have financial juice running here. I haven't missed anything. Okay, Lawrence Summers posting something. I cannot understand why so many in the administration and out cling to the idea that inflation is caused by bottlenecks and will soon recede to normal levels. Of course, there is uncertainty, but the idea that inflation will resort soon to levels anywhere near the Fed's target looks like a long shot. Nonpartisan BLS CPI report refers to inflation as broad increases in most sectors. Similar to last month, inflation is not at bottlenecks. Less than 10% of the index saw inflation below 3%. And aside from housing, where figures are problematic, the share below 4% is less than quarter. Okay, yeah. Oh, okay, so this is such a good point. The inflation that we have seen in housing suggests that the inflation is not just caused by bottlenecks. I love that. We have all seen house prices and rents soar. Home prices based on Case-Shiller are up 15 to 20%, as are rental prices, as reported by the nation's largest landlords. If we assume 17% residential inflation, both CPI and core CPI would have exceeded 10% last month. Either the official indexes are just wrong, or more likely, 3 to 4 points of inflation from housing are coming in 2022, even if there is no further increase in rents or home prices. This effect far exceeds any benefit from lower energy or used car prices. Okay. Inflation has trended up through 2021, and the economy is growing far more rapidly than potential output. Given housing prices and tightening labor markets, there is no compelling reason to expect major deceleration in inflation. But even if inflation subsided to 0.2% a month, the annualized inflation rate would be 6.5% in March, 5.1% in June, and 4% before the election in September. My guess is, barring a major recessionary or financial shock next fall, headline inflation will round to 5%. We are beyond where the Vietnam inflation took us, but still have plenty of time to stop a late 1970s situation from developing if we have the will. Okay. That's curious. What's this? It's just the E-mini open. Hold on, we need to reset things here, don't we? Oh, you know what? These, I'm not even showing the correct E-minis. Let's fix that. Good grief, Seth. Okay, so this should be ES 322. And CME indices. Okay, there we go. And this one should be MES 322. Default. No, this one. Not this one is the one that I like to be indices, and I have the other one be default. Have this one be ES default, which is 24/7. Okay. Okay, well, so we should know there is some bearishness in the S&P 500. It's coming back down to 4,700, which is like a pretty key level with a lot of gamma sitting at it and everything else. So seeing some bearish action back to that level isn't necessarily like a big, huge scary thing. It does appear that a lot of the bullishness in Treasury has been accompanied by bearishness in the S&P 500 and a rise in the 6J. I do think that we are getting some more volume coming in here. I don't think that this was like a large meta order, somebody making a bet on the FOMC, but it is turning into a significant move. nowadays, value high and value low are so common that false buy and sell signals are more common than not. You have to include acceptance, rejection, and relative value to have. Well, okay. So that's an interesting thing. So I would be interested to know what you would qualify, how you would qualify acceptance or rejection of a specific level, so that we can test those. Because, if you just talk about a level being touched, yeah, it's just noise. It's just noise. Can you come in and you can say a price traded and a key price traded, and then we moved away from it, we moved back down, and we haven't been back up for 5 minutes, and then we can say that it's rejected, and we could test that. I've never taken it that far. Yeah. Oh, by the way, you want to email me, speculatorseth@protonmail.com. Or you can just message me on Discord. We really got to get in Discord more often, guys. I'm going to be here all through Christmas. So when we're not here to BS in Discord or in YouTube, we can talk in Discord. Most of the information happens in equity indexes, but if you just want to chat, I would just start posting stuff in the lobby. I almost always respond, even though I might not see things right away. There you go. Aside from patterns, how does an individual determine a stop loss on the DOM? I personally normally use a 10 to 20 tick stop loss. Okay, so the way that I do it is I just look at what the volatility is in that market and try to have a stop that's a little bit further than that volatility, so that if I'm right, because I'm trying to make a play off of an informational edge. So if I'm right, I am unlikely to have a move against me beyond that random volatility that we have in the market. And that's generally how I set my stops. I don't use any kind of chart pattern. And again, what I have learned, it suggests that you can find a chart pattern and it can work, but one, it will be really, really hard to find a good one. And two, if you do find a good one, it might not be around for very long. Because markets are quite statistically efficient. It's very easy for them to arbitrage out statistical inefficiencies. Coming back to 1.45. I mean, I could have, I suspected, I didn't want to think that it was going to happen. Remember, I was still thinking, I could go long 475. That would have been a bad trade, right? I could have gone short 475 and been 20 ticks in the money now. I kind of suspected it, but I was not a believer. I was not a believer. It is possible that Russia will be forced to deploy intermediate nuclear missiles in Europe. Yeah, I did see that one too. Yeah, that's was about 10 minutes ago. I don't know if that's what, I don't think that that's what the S&P 500 is trading off of, but it could be. Could be. I'm kind of in this same problem that we were the other day, where it's like, okay, so now that we've had this move up, can they really sustain that? Can this really be like a trend day and they get above 24 and everything? And I'm thinking probably not, then that maybe I want to go long 45.5. Well, I'm not seeing anything really clear in the order flow yet. One thing I am noticing, though, is that the offers are still about 2,100 for a lot of these prices. But some of these are 24 now. So we are seeing some large players come in and starting to add some liquidity in the 10-year. So that kind of, that's kind of been what they've been doing. But this does kind of look like major players are getting involved to me. Or at least there is some evidence that major players are getting involved here. Russia won't do that. I really can't sort out what Russia is doing. Ukraine really strongly believes that Russia is going to try and invade at the beginning of next year. Like that we're a month or two away from Russia doing something. And furthermore, the West is basically like, we're not going to defend them. I don't know who set that strategy up. Do you think that if Donald Trump was in charge right now, that he would be saying, yeah, if the Russians invade Ukraine, well, we're not going to put troops on the ground? Yeah, so Caleb's got a good point here. Russia is our number 2 supplier of oil. Russia supplies Ukraine and Europe with gas. Europe and Ukraine will freeze. So, with what we're having happen right now, well, I'm not seeing a huge rise in natural gas as of yet. Oil is still kind of in the doldrums. But if there was any kind of, I don't know, market seems to not be responding to that too much, at least not in oil. But if there was a conflict in Ukraine, it would probably substantially increase the cost of oil, I would think, and natural gas especially. Prices coming down, but I'm looking for longs. Well, in the ES, I think that buying the dip here in ES makes total sense. If I see any kind of a strong impulse in the E-mini here in ES, I might try taking it long. For now, they're happy trending down. They might push down into, well, let's see here. Okay. So you zoom in here. Make sure I've got this all correct. So I have this CPI price somewhere around 46.76. So if we were to get to those prices, that would start to get interesting. I'm also seeing that ES is into stops mode. So that's another thing I see kind of going on at the moment. So do you think I should have traded off of the bearish thesis? Because we talked about it a lot at the beginning, right? Where I was saying, even though the Federal Reserve is going to increase interest rates, you might paradoxically see the treasuries buy off of, flight to safety concerns. Because that's what happened last time that we were in this kind of a situation. Do you think? Maybe I could have taken it. Hey, NASDAQ trader, how are you? I'm curious. Well, there's a little bit of a bid in ES. I don't know. I'm looking at it oh, let's buy the dip. But then I'm thinking, yeah, but they might start to chop around here. Don't you think? So I haven't been watching it very well. Did we run into some liquidity problems down there in 46.90? I sure am seeing a lot of robot activity. Where is that coming from? It's really far out. There's these big, yeah, okay, I see them. You see these 2 big orders? They're really far away and they're moving with the ES, which is not something that I normally see. You're making that cheese? No. We took a loss on Friday. And I'm kind of sitting here going maybe I should back off now. I think it's my tendency to get really excited going into the big news event and want to make money off of the big news event when the bigger trade might be after that. Maybe not even this week, maybe next week is when the picture starts to become clear, and maybe well, that's a tough one. it could be that the S&P 500 sells into the rest of the month, but there's still a lot of money to come into the markets. But Goldman Sachs is still convinced that there's some good money that's going to come into the market. It's kind of hard for me to sort out. But Gus sent crickets to me. Why'd you send crickets to me? You don't like this action? Now, the other thing that I think is so weird about this Russia situation is that, like, Ukraine and the Western governments are all like, "Oh yeah, they're gonna invade," and then Russia's just like, "No, we're just moving troops around in our own territory. You can't get mad at us for doing that. We're not gonna invade Ukraine." Like, really? And like, how do they expect the locals and frankly the people of Russia to react if you lie about it like that, and then in this January all of a sudden you decide to go in? But then the other thing that I think is a little crazy is all of the Western powers saying, "Yeah, if you guys, we'll let you take Ukraine," and then afterwards we'll go, "Oh, you're so naughty." It'll be like Ossetia and everything all over again. So we'll impose sanctions and all of that sort of stuff, but then not actually do anything. Russia can take Ukraine anytime. Yes and no. So could Russia take Ukraine? Yes, but I don't think that it would be without costs. And I think that the people of Ukraine would put up long-term resistance. Would probably put up some long-term resistance, but let's see. Am I missing something here? Ooh, yeah, Bitcoin is taking a bit of a drop again. Falling through 4,800 once more. I don't think that that's like a new low, but it kind of looks like it could be coming. The Treasury did turn there. I guess you could say that we identified a few hints that maybe it was going to, but I didn't really think that wasn't really kind of the one that I was looking for, was it? But I don't pay attention very well. If we're in the situation, if this is going to trend, then this is probably where you want to take it, right? Is Ethereum trying to tell us something? I don't know. You say the Russians in eastern Ukraine have been begging Russia to get more involved. I mean, how can we be sure of that? That's kind of the problem. Right. You know that what's going to happen is Russia is going to come in. They're going to take over what is that area called? The area that's been contested, right? And then they're going to say, they're either going to say, well, it wasn't us, it was freedom fighters that did it. Or they're going to say, well, the government, we were protecting our ethnic minorities from Ukrainian oppression. And everybody is greeting us as liberators, and you're going to, and then the West is going to be like, that's not what happened. And they're going to, they're going to contradict each other, right? You can watch them give their testimonies. This is like, how do you know that that's not just propaganda, right? The Russians have been trying to manipulate the media and public opinion on this, Every step of the way. When it happens, they're going to say, you see, the West, this isn't any of the West's business. You guys shouldn't be involved. You don't want to risk your own lives to do this sort of a thing. It's what they're going to do. That's what China tries to do with Taiwan, too. They're like, nah, the U.S. isn't going to defend Taiwan. Why would you risk your own lives to help them? It belongs to China anyways. How do you sort out what is the propaganda and what's not? Because they've gotten awfully good at showing you what, they've gotten awfully good at deceiving us. It's been, is it Donetsk or whatever, that area, they've been fighting there for a long time. So I'm going to guess that things are more complicated than that. Hours of footage. Hours of footage doesn't mean anything, dude. So the argument that I think you're making is that the volume of content is how you can determine that it is true or false and not propaganda. I don't think so. I really don't think so. I think that Russia is capable of producing a lot of content for their propaganda. Okay, well, I said, hey, this is where you want to buy it. Look, they're up higher. Yes, not quite. Well, they did push a little bit lower there just a minute ago. I think it's very difficult to sort out. Number one, it's difficult to sort out what the people in that region really actually want. And number two, I don't think it matters, to be honest with you. Like, borders are there for a reason, And you can't just come in and say, well, because enough of our people moved there, we have the, it'd be like if Mexico went in and annexed a portion of Texas. You would just be like, oh, okay, well, the people in Texas, that's what they wanted, so come on. That's not how any of this works. Oh, you live in Taiwan? I would like to move to or not move, but visit Taiwan. I tried to learn Chinese, but for some reason I always get lazy about it. There was a coup in 2014. Yeah, but now they have a constitutional republic in Ukraine. A democracy. A pretty good democracy. And why is Russia all of a sudden getting involved? Come on. I'll be so mad if China invades Taiwan and the West doesn't do anything about it. That should be a war. I really feel like, I mean, maybe it's not quite the same guarantee with Ukraine, right? I wish it was. But with Taiwan, if they invaded Taiwan and the West did nothing, that would be such a blow to the West's credibility. Like, I don't want to think about that world, man. You are so lost. Look, you're saying a bunch of stuff and acting like it's factual, and you can't. I don't think that we can prove any of that. What are your thoughts on shorting Bitcoin? Well, if you want to go short Bitcoin, And in all honesty, right now, it doesn't look too bad. Doesn't look too bad. If you were wanting to go short Bitcoin, I think that the play that you would want to make is buying puts on MSTR. That require a lot of money. To do that, but you could do it. That probably is the most effective way, is to short MSTR with some out of the money puts. Well, okay, so you're saying, well, there was a political situation in 2014, yes. But again, foreign governments were involved on both sides of that coup. Now, was one side Nazis or something like that? Just the fact that you're trying to say, the people that took the government that took over the government in Ukraine are Nazis, that alone is like a huge red flag that you're basing everything that you're saying off of propaganda, dude. A huge red flag. And then the U.S. government comes in here and says, we support the nation of Ukraine, and they have a democratic republic, and they're doing good, and it's actually looks like a strong democracy. And now all of a sudden, Russia is coming in for why? For why? Seriously, for why? Why does Russia need to invade Ukraine right now? It's just so absolutely insane. The territorial borders of Ukraine, it's been that for decades now. Russia has no claim to that territory. You realize they go and they take this over. It is a military invasion, takeover of sovereign land. It doesn't matter who's in charge in Ukraine or any of that. Okay, maybe if they were like committing literal genocide, then you'd really have to prove that, and that would be China is committing literal genocide, right? I haven't seen any kind of evidence of people committing literal genocide in Ukraine, or at least not systematic genocide, right? I don't think I've ever seen more than like 5 minutes of CNN. Outside of clips when people on CNN say dumb things. This drop is crazy. Well, now that they're to the 80s, it is pretty crazy, isn't it? Here's the thing that I think is funny. China is 100% committing genocide, and I'm 100% sure of that. And if you do not see that, then you really are brainwashed, quite frankly. Like, seriously, there have been so many people that have come out talking about the camps, and then China says, no, that's not what this is. And so then independent journalists go in and find these camps and show that they are literally internment camps where they're committing genocide. Like, it's more of a cultural genocide. Understand? They're committing a cultural genocide. Their intention, they don't necessarily intend to kill all of the people. They just want that culture, the Uyghur culture, to be dead. And that is, according to the world, what do we call it? The UN. That's like fits a UN definition of genocide. They are, without question, committing genocide in China. There is evidence that you can verify for yourself, right? That's the thing that I don't think you understand here, is you can't go out and read something on the internet and say, okay, well, this person on the internet said X thing, and that must mean that it's true. It doesn't work that way, right? If you're just taking one media, like, how can you trust one media source over another media source or for this sort of a thing or anything like that, when you know that literal governments are putting millions of dollars into trying to manipulate your perception of things? How do you know anything? The only way that you can possibly know anything in that situation is empirical evidence, which means evidence of something happening that you can verify and look at for yourself, right? And which, by the way, they have in China, okay? Somebody interviewing, like you were talking about interviewing somebody, going into Donetsk and interviewing somebody, finding a person that supports Russia and saying, well, we would like to be part of Russia. That's not empirical evidence. That's anecdotal evidence, and it's one person, right? How do you empirically determine something like that? Well, you'd have to do an unbiased poll, and you'd have to prove that the poll wasn't biased and see what the people actually believe, right? You have that? That's the only way that I know. But then again, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You don't the sovereign borders don't just dissolve just because you feel like it. You know? Like, where do you get this stuff from? Seriously. Well, it's kind of the bigger, the thing that you didn't answer is like, why? Why is it that Russia should invade right now? I mean, first of all, they keep saying that they're not going to. Yeah, why are they having an election in eastern Ukraine unless it's sanctioned election? Like, come on. Well, and I'm just looking up the Azov battalion here, and that's not Ukraine. That's not the Ukrainian government. Hey, you gotta head out. Hey, thanks for coming in, Aditya. Aditya? I think that's how you say it. That sounds like a familiar name. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. You know what? You know what helps the channel out the most, you guys, is when you watch one of those videos, leave a comment afterwards. Ask a question, or like you have some experience and like relate your experiences similar to it. Blackwater, come on. Yeah, election in Eastern Ukraine, like the one in Crimea. Yeah. Hold on, New Squawk is saying something. BlackRock turns underweight European government bonds. Yields will rise relative to current market pricing, implying no significant change in monetary policy for several years. I guess Bank of Canada is what they're talking about here. Okay, this is just 22, by the way. Where I was saying, like, are they going to trend and really go higher? And I was like, I can't say, but they did. And I also wonder, can the ES have another decline built into it? I think it could. I think it very much could. But here again, it's like the S&P 500 is worried about rising rates and what the Federal Reserve is going to do. And so the treasuries are moving up as a flight to safety risk. Isn't it funny? Okay, so I think if I'm honest with myself, I would like to see interest rates rise. So what I'm seeing right now is like not in line with what I would prefer to see, but it's what's happening. So we deal with it. Okay, so back to Ukraine. So you realize that the things that you're saying to me, like the way that you're reacting to me, all have tall tale signs of the government, not only government propaganda in the information, but of an opinion that was arrived at basically through brainwashing, right? So if you were to come to me and you were to say, okay, you believe that the market is more technically or statistically efficient than it is informationally efficient. This is an opinion that I hold. I wouldn't say that that's necessarily a proven fact, okay? But it's our best understanding based on the current evidence, right? And so you ask me, how do you know that, right? I'm not going to go and attack you or your opinion or any of that sort of stuff. What am I going to do? I'm going to go out and pull out trades, quotes, and prices, and I'm going to start showing you all of the math that they used to arrive at that conclusion. The information that you could verify, right? And why it is verifiable, right? Here, with what's going on in Ukraine, I think that you've got two major issues here with making the case that Russia should invade Ukraine and that the West should be entirely fine with it. Is that number one, why like it defies everything about how international law and borders and so on and so forth work. Okay. You don't get to just invade a country. This is the shit that Hitler pulled. Okay, there's a border. They said, yeah, but they're Germans, and then they took it over. Doesn't work that way. You can't allow that sort of stuff. It's a real problem when you start allowing that stuff, okay? But number two is I'm just not hearing where this stuff that you can verify that this stuff is empirical evidence of your premise and not government propaganda, right? In fact, what you're saying is, well, the only reason that you hold the opinion that you do is because you've been brainwashed by the American government. So number one, I'm 100% going to trust the American government more than I am the Russian government on something like that, okay? Just the Russian government is so full of shit on these sorts of things, man, is just mind-boggling how they basically, like, anything that they say in their propaganda, the reality is just like the exact opposite, okay? But number two, I'm not making any claim, right? I haven't actually made a claim. All I've done is I've questioned the claims that you're making, right? I'm questioning the claims that you're making, and that immediately makes me a clueless Washington rube. The world will not start a war with Russia. There's no way. I wouldn't say that there's no way. So the thing that sparked this GT350 is here's the question: if Donald Trump was president, would he be saying that we would use on the ground forces to defend Ukraine? Do you think that he would? Because Joe, I'm shocked. Here's the thing that's crazy about this. Okay. There's this issue on Ukraine, and man, if they actually invade, it's going to be a big deal, right? You think Trump would do that? I think he would too. Okay, so the thing that is kind of crazy about this, and I think it's going to end up becoming really relevant in American politics, is that this issue seems to cross party lines. So there was this whole thing on Tucker Carlson where he was saying, why would we want to get involved in Ukraine? Like, that's not our problem. I think that what we learned from World War II was that when countries just start attacking other countries and, you know, taking over sovereign nations, that eventually that becomes everybody's problem. And I think that that's the case here. I think that if you just let Russia come in and take over Ukraine, that you get a bunch of other problems, because there's all of these countries that are in NATO, right? That are right on the border of that are afraid of Russia doing stuff. You're seeing that this whole border crisis with Poland for Belarus and all that sort of thing. Like, it doesn't just end in Ukraine, right? So it is everybody's problem. Okay, so a lot of people on the left are eviscerating Tucker Carlson for trying to say it's not our problem. I don't agree with them, but this is the whole neocon thing, right? Is that there were Republicans that were hawks, but the Republican Party in the past was actually kind of dovish. They only ended up being hawks because of the Vietnam War, but even then it was really the war in Iraq where Republicans became hawks. Okay. Yeah. Anyways, but then on the split side, Biden is basically saying the same thing. Biden is basically saying, well, we'll give them arms and we'll support them, but we're not going to put troops on the ground. Right. So Joe Biden is making the same calculation that Tucker Carlson is saying. Right. So all of these people that are Democrats that are eviscerating Tucker Carlson, why aren't they mad at Joe Biden? But then the split side of that is if Ukraine does get invaded and Joe Biden sits by and does nothing, and then will the Republicans all of a sudden be hawks and get mad at Joe Biden for it? You know what I mean? It's going to be a really weird situation, I think, if Ukraine ends up becoming a significant issue in the next election. But I can't. There's like so much propaganda in there. You just can't sort out what's actually going on on the ground. All I know is that there's absolutely no situation where it is justifiable for Russia to invade. There simply isn't. Didn't Time Magazine have Hitler as man? Yeah. Well, there was a lot of people in the United States that viewed him somewhat favorably. It was until he started attacking the UK, and then it was that was when they kind of turned on him. That was when it became clear that, like, oh no, he really is crazy. We were wrong. But that one is a dangerous one too. It's like And you kind of try to do this too, as you said, oh, well, there's literal Nazis going around in Donetsk and doing stuff. Trying to ally your position with somebody simply because they oppose a Nazi or a communist is a really great way to get suckered into something stupid. Okay. Obviously, oppose the evil people, but allying or taking a position with other people simply because they oppose the evil people is this is what evil people do, guys. Is they come in and they say, oh, look at this evil person, they're doing evil things, you need to help me, right? And then you help them, and then they turn around and they go and do something evil. Every freaking time, man. That's how it happens. That's how Hitler did things. That's how Stalin got into power. Like, don't mess with that one. Saudi energy minister says oil will make up 28% of energy demand until at least 2045, compared to 30% in 2020. So they're saying that in the next 20 years that oil energy use is only going to decrease 2%. But again, ours on the ground footage is not necessarily empirical evidence, right? That's not really, do you understand what would qualify or not qualify as empirical evidence, right? So a video is anecdotal. I can just go and find the 100 or so people out of the millions of people that live there that like what Russia is doing and interview them, and then post that, plaster that up everywhere, and make like tons of videos of interviewing those people, but it not actually be indicative of the larger opinion there in the area. And you still have the problem that just because there's a lot of Russians there that support Russia doesn't nullify Ukraine's sovereign claim on the territory. I don't know. So I'm not 100% convinced that Russia is going to attack. You realize how terrible it will be for the Russian economy if they attack, right? I mean, like, part of it is they're saying that, like, there's like so why is Russia doing it? Some people say that it's because things aren't going so hot at home in Russia and they needed a distraction for Putin to maintain his popularity. That's one. Another one is that they're saying that there's like political legitimacy to it, that like if he doesn't do anything, that people kind of not support him as much. Putin, that is. Or there's all those sorts of things. Russia or Ukraine is absolutely convinced that Russia is going to do something, but the West is not so sure. The West, I think, is still a little confused and like thinks that maybe Russia is just saber rattling and isn't actually going to do anything. Because Russia attacks, right? What is the West going to do? They're going to completely cut Russia off. They will be completely cut off from world markets. It will be so devastating to the Russian economy. There's really not... Doesn't matter. That's do you not understand what is it about the word empirical evidence? Do you understand what I mean by empirical evidence? And anecdotal evidence, and why anecdotal evidence is useless for trying to prove a claim? Anecdotal evidence can be really useful, right? If you know something is true, and then you can kind of look at anecdotal evidence and you can get like good ideas for new theories and try and understand things more deeply. But anecdotal evidence doesn't prove anything, right? You gotta understand that. Like the reason why I let myself get into these kinds of arguments is because I'm trying to teach you guys how you can sort out what is true and what is not in an environment where there's a lot of noise. Because this is what day trading is too. Everybody that day trades has their own opinion about a way to trade. And they're all going to say something. And you're going to see some people come in that's going to say, well, I made money doing X thing. And that's anecdotal evidence, right? In order to have in order to really know that the market behaves in that way and that would be a potentially effective strategy, would be empirical evidence. Empirical evidence would be like a mathematical explanation of markets, and then observations of a wide array of markets showing that behavior holds and is consistent across all of those different kinds of markets, and taking an inventory over like all, doing a backtest over all market activity of the last 10 years, right? Yeah, okay, but you're still... I really question... So, okay, you're trying to use a different fallacy, right? So first of all, you offered up anecdotal evidence as proof. Now you are trying to establish authority on a subject by saying that you were in the NSA, which, number one, I can't prove. Okay? To, say, well, the reason that I know I'm right is because I know more about this than you. But again, this is not proof of anything. This is not empirical evidence. If you need to prove something, you have to provide empirical evidence, which means information that I can verify for myself is correct and it is complete, right? You can't just take one observation and say that's indicative of the whole thing, right? Empirical evidence that would show that the people hold a particular thing would be like a poll that polls a wide swath of people, and I would have to be able to look at, for instance, the poll methodology, right? It sure feels like the same argument that I have with Ace, doesn't it? I'm pretty sure it's not him, though. Caleb's been around for a few days, if not longer than that. Yeah, let the facts upgrade all of our knowledge. Yeah, and like the whole problem here is that what's happening is you're being flooded by from large swaths of information about Ukraine, none of which is empirical. The sad truth about a situation like Ukraine is that they don't let us see the empirical evidence, you know. People in the intelligence agencies in Russia and the United States, they have empirical evidence and they can use that to try and sort out what they think is going on in the ground. And what they sort out might actually be going on in the ground might be different from what they tell us. And so we don't have any way to sort that out, right? But what we can do is we can go and look at when people are trying to make an argument, trying to get us to believe something, and we can identify all of the logical fallacies that they're using to try and present something. And if they're using a bunch of logical fallacies to try and present something, and it seems extremely tilted towards one direction, then that's a pretty big warning sign that it's just propaganda, right? So here we're going, okay, you're trying to establish authority, you're trying to use anecdotal evidence, but you haven't actually provided us with a shred of information that we could actually use to prove something. And the fact that you're trying to use those logical fallacies to try and convince me makes me extremely skeptical about your motivations. Yes, a testimony is anecdotal, right? Like, I mean, it kind of depends on the situation, but for the thing that you're trying to prove, that what are you trying to prove? You're trying to prove that the people of Ukraine would like Russia to come in and take over. That's your argument, right? That the people of the Ukraine in the area that's contested, at least, maybe not all of Ukraine, but in that what is it, northeastern section, right? Anyways, you're saying that the people there largely support Ukraine, and you're saying you watch somebody's testimony. Somebody's testimony cannot prove that. You realize that, right? It's anecdotal. It doesn't prove anything. Well, I don't really feel like that you're providing a fuller view of the situation, though. You're just introducing a bunch of noise, right? like that's the whole thing, is like, not all information is useful. How do we sort out what is useful information and what is not useful information? And I'm saying the golden standard is empirical evidence. Now, in our world, we don't have perfect empirical evidence, and we may have to make choices or decisions based on incomplete information, or based on information that can't be proven with empirical evidence, right? So now that it gets even more interesting. How do you make those kinds of decisions? Well, I think that the first thing that you got to do is you got to say to yourself, if I'm going to make a decision like that, there's a really high chance that I'm wrong, and I don't really have any control over it. How wrong I am, simply because of the information that I have available, right? But I would be really careful about just going out and saying, well, here's all of this potential information that you can go and look at. But when, again, there's like people out there intentionally trying to deceive you on this. So especially when you know that and this happens in the markets too, people trying to deceive you on this. There are people out there that very, very much want you to believe that interest rates aren't going to rise because they get destroyed if interest rates rise, right? They want you to believe that inflation is transitory and that they're not going to raise rates in the future and to be skeptical about it, because they have built their wealth off of this low interest rate regime. And if interest rates rise too quickly, if they lose money, and they would prefer that everybody disregards what the Federal Reserve is saying so that they can get out. But then there are other people that have been kind of left out for a long, long time and want the interest rates to rise. And they're going to try and do everything to convince you that it's going to rise. And so how do you sort out what is factual and not factual on that particular thing? And here is where we can use empirical evidence. So one is that there are only a dozen or so people that actually make this decision. So here, an interview with the Federal Reserve member is invaluable, because we can just see what every individual believes and what their policy will be, right? Now, see, being careful to me is hearing both sides and weighing them. That just means I'm going to expose myself to propaganda from both sides. It's just... Here's the thing, is that the U.S. government definitely engages in propaganda, okay? But U.S. propaganda is very different from Russian propaganda, right? U.S. propaganda is really more about trying to maintain public support for something, right? They don't necessarily come out and try and intentionally disrupt what's going on in another country, because let me explain it this way. The United States strategy on intelligence here is that they trust their people. They're willing to give the individual military units a lot of autonomy, and they're willing to operate in an environment where there's a lot of chaos and confusion, because they think that their people are smart enough to sort it out and figure it out, right? So the U.S. government doesn't necessarily come in and say, okay, here's what's going on in Ukraine, but we want people to believe this, so we're going to go and put all of this stuff on the news that is the exact opposite of what's actually going on. That's not what happens. What happens instead is you have independent news agencies that are really favorable towards the United States. So you get coverage that might not be accurate, but it's not accurate because of the bias of the people involved, and not necessarily because they're intentionally trying to deceive you, like it is with basically anything that comes out of Sputnik or whatever the hell the name is of that the big Russian media outlet, right? Russia does two things. One is they try and put out so much information that a reasonable person can't actually come to a real conclusion, and two, they will put things out that are the exact opposite of what is actually going on. Yeah. So I don't know how involved the United States was in the coup in Ukraine. I don't think is really relevant. The National Enquirer. I think that they're just click chasers. Do you think that the Treasury has another leg in it here? I tell you what, if we get another leg up here in the Treasury, I'm going to be really shocked. Well, let me take that back. I mean, I could totally understand if it kind of like starts to range around here, but like let's say that they get to what price would be like clearly another leg higher. Okay, if the Treasury got above, no, not 245. Okay, so we're above Friday's high already. 245 would be the next one. So the next one above that would be 25.5, which is the yearly low. 25.5 and then 29. Okay, so if we touch 29 today, I will be so shocked. If we touch 29 today in the Treasury, I will be so shocked. That is like, okay, like I totally understand. I think the motivations and the risk reward and situation that would cause you to buy treasuries here, but for it to be that excessive would be a total shock to me. Like something else is going on that I don't understand. Like there's a reality that would be enough to really contradict my current view of the market. I suppose unless maybe 29 might be reasonable if the S&P 500 pukes, but I think that at that point the S&P 500 would have to be like below 2650 or sorry 4650, below 4650. Can the ES get there? That's another 20 points down. That would be insane too. But they have pushed lower from where they were. I don't know. It is pretty bearish here. Wow, you made money by shorting Bitcoin? Well, you took a small play. Americans play the same game Russia plays. I really think that American disinformation is a little bit different from Russian. It's a little different. I'm not saying that the US government doesn't lie, but I don't think that the US government at the current time wants to be putting out a lot of misinformation about Ukraine because they don't know. Like the US government doesn't know if Russia is going to invade Ukraine, right? They seem quite perplexed by this. From what I've seen from the intelligence agencies, not like they're saying it per se, but they're kind of like, why is Russia being so stupid? This just seems like a really stupid thing for them to do. I mean, that's what I think, at least. It seems really illogical and kind of dumb for Russia to come in and invade Ukraine when the whole Western world is sitting there saying, like, don't do it. Don't do it. We're not going to stop you, but don't do it. Like, it's not going to be good for Russia. Right? I think that the U.S. right now is primarily concerned with being best prepared. And part of that means trying to have an informed populace on the issue. They'll lie on individual things, but, would want to see what is the individual thing that we can prove that they're lying about, right? The split side is that you can make appeal to authority is a logical fallacy, but an appeal to the unreliability of a source is also a logical fallacy. We should be able to disprove the individual claim. What is the individual claim that's being made by the United States that's objectively false? I don't think that, here's the thing, is that Russia's the one that's saying all this stuff about what's going on in Ukraine and stuff. The U.S. isn't even saying anything about it, right? It's because I don't think that the U.S. cares. Think about the U.S. perspective here, right? The U.S. position is that Ukraine is a constitutional republic, a legitimate government, and that they have sovereignty over that area, right? And that's all there is to it, to them. So to them, whether or not there are, right-wing militias causing trouble there or any of that. That's Ukraine's problem, right? You don't invade because of that. Canada doesn't go in and invade the United States because the Proud Boys were protesting in the Capitol, right? That doesn't make any sense. Putin is definitely a chess player in all this. I think though that here is like the Russian position is not that strong, right? Yeah, the difference is that the U.S. government prepares the population to accept that they had to act, whereas the Russian government tells its population why they will act. Yeah. You notice that the American strategy on terms of conflicts and like dealing with an extended conflict doesn't work very well, right? The nation building. Apparently the British were good at this, but the United States hasn't been very good with nation building outside of Europe. This move in European gas prices may concern the ECB in their forecasts of transitory Eurozone inflation. In the European gas market, perhaps the most interesting move isn't just the surge in front-month prices, but how the whole November 2022 to 23 period is getting repriced, as the market assumes that the current tightness is going to roll over from this winter into the next. Let me come in here. I just want to check on natural gas. Let's reload all historical data and make sure that what I've got in there is all up to date. Because I'm still seeing that from the beginning of December that prices are still lower. Yeah, it didn't change at all. They are towards today's highs and they are higher than yesterday though. So that might be something we need to watch. Okay, so treasuries are pushing into the 4660s now. You think that Putin will likely launch us? Well, I don't know. I don't think that the U.S. is going to do anything, though, right? Like, that's the thing that I find really perplexing is that they've been making a big deal out of Russia possibly doing something in Ukraine and Belarus and everything, but then Biden says, well, but we're not going to put troops to it. Okay. So, like, they're talking about it, but it's basically like, okay, but if they do it, then we're just going to say, naughty, naughty. No global markets for you. No, I don't realize that Ukraine has some of the best farmland in the Eastern world. Is that why they want it? Do you think that that's why they want it? I mean, that's the first time that I've heard somebody mention a potential strategic reason for Russia to want to have it, but it's got to be more than just that, right? But it's true. There's not much usable land up in Siberia, right? By the way, pretty big iceberg at 22. And maybe some flattening. And another thing is that if there are like these groups or if the Ukrainian government is doing something that was awful and evil, why isn't it they bringing it up in like the UN? Is another thing. I don't know. There's just a lot of behavior that I'm seeing from both sides here on this that don't make sense to me, that don't seem 100% rational. The only one that I can see that's rational in this is Ukraine, right? Ukraine is going to want to make it seem like it's as big of a deal as possible, so that if something does happen, they'll have as much support from the Western world as they can get, right? So just because Ukraine says that they're certain Russia is going to do it, wouldn't necessarily be a reliable indication that Russia actually will. Okay, it's Macklem, but the Bank of Canada, Bank of Canada's Governor Macklem will speak at the top of the hour. One thing that you could do, they talk about those interviews, is if people in the interviews make specific claims, then you can go and you can try and verify those claims, right? So I tell you what, man, who has a good intelligence agency, man, is the Israelis. Holy crap. Mossad is, I mean, we're allies with Mossad and everything. So it's a good thing that they're effective, I suppose, but it's kind of scary how good they are. It's kind of scary how good they are. And they have they have YouTube channels that are basically propaganda outlets. But I have found that they are very good at using those YouTube videos to present empirical evidence. Like they'll make claims about that there are weapon caches in locations, and then they'll go back and they'll show you the videos and they'll say, okay, here's our explosion, and then here's the explosion from the weapon cache, and explain how it works and everything, and present it as empirical evidence that there was a weapons cache there, right? Or they'll talk about, they'll do interviews with people, and the people will say, well, they're doing this. And then they'll go and they'll find a video of the people that are doing that. So you might not know how widespread it is, but you can see they present, and I think part of it is that the audience from the Israeli propaganda efforts isn't necessarily people in the West like it is for the Palestinians. The Palestinians, all of their propaganda is basically geared towards people in the West. I think it's also other governments, right? So they provide stuff that the intelligence agencies on other governments would look at. My gut tells me Putin is exploiting America's lack of leadership and its turmoil at home. Okay, so let's go back a second. So Joe Biden will not put troops on the ground for Ukraine. And we said that I'm a little unsure, but I think I'm leaning towards that Donald Trump would. Okay. Would Hillary Clinton? I think that Hillary Clinton would. Wouldn't she? Oh, that's a good point. We're not allied to Mossad. We share intel, but we do not treat them as we would a true ally. Consider the Five Eyes, which doesn't include Israel. Yeah, and Mossad has done a number of things in their intelligence operations that the West wasn't very happy with. There was, I think, an Australian family that basically got killed. and Mossad basically admits that that's what happened. Just to maintain the secrecy of a particular operation. Oh man, you watch, there's a Netflix is it in Netflix? I don't know. I watched it on Netflix about Mossad. It was like, whoa. And this guy, they had a scuba retreat that was basically a cover for getting refugees out of a country. And so Westerns will come and do this scuba retreat. And there was one guy that was kind of smart enough to notice a scuba diver doing a hand signal that was military and not civilian. And he realized that they were Israeli intelligence, and so they had to kill him. Oops. Anyways, the question, would Hillary Clinton do it? I would lean towards yes, right? I think Hillary would. What would be like the edge case? Would who do we got? Who do we got on the right? Okay, would Tulsi Gabbard? Let's see if she's said anything about it. Let's see here. Tulsi Gabbard. She's got a Twitter. Okay. Okay. The same self-serving politicians and mainstream media who convinced us to go to war in Iraq, Libya, and Syria, destroying the Middle East, are now trying to convince us that we need to go to war with Russia and destroy Europe and the United States. Okay, so she thinks that we should not be putting boots on the ground in Ukraine. Okay, that one's pretty clear. What about Ted Cruz? I don't think that he's trying to say he would put boots on the ground, but he is blaming it on Joe Biden being weak. This weekend, so I heard this, but I didn't realize that it was this. The Biden administration declassified their own assessment that an invasion is imminent and that it could come as early as January or February of next year. And candidly, the administration is trying to prepare everyone for the very substantial possibility of a Russian invasion of Ukraine. So I did catch that, but I kind of had forgotten that it was the Biden administration's assessment and all of that sort of stuff. But then my understanding is that Biden said we won't put boots on the ground, right? He's just blaming it on Biden, but he's not saying we should put boots on the ground. So it's unclear what his opinion is on it. Well, yeah, it's also one thing to ship your troops to Afghanistan. It's another to try and move them to the border of Russia. I don't know, man. By the way, the treasuries are kind of doing this dance again. Like, I kind of think they can move higher. I'm gonna take a sim trade on it, okay? No, I'm not gonna take a sim trade because it's only got 15 minutes, and I'm gonna need to do some work, and I should focus on that work and not a trade. But I'm kind of thinking that like 22.5 would be an okay place to get long because they're still doing this stuff. Yeah, I can see that the liquidity has increased substantially in the treasury, right? I think that there are some big players that are involved in this market and that they may continue to try and push it higher. Like even if the S&P 500 recovers here, let's say that they recover and close the day at 4,700, I don't think that the treasuries will come all the way back. Although it's a possibility that we should monitor. And what else do we got going on here? The 6J is up pretty consistently here. Oil is on a little bit of a run again. Maybe they're going to try and push towards the higher end of the range for the day. Bitcoin came down to kind of the edge of the cliff and is trying to bounce, but mostly just sitting there. Good chats on the channel makes the morning go so quickly. I appreciate it. The thing that I'm trying to sort out right now is how do I have an argument like this without being annoying? You know, because I think some people that would be frustrating and annoying, and I'm pretty arrogant too, right? I'm like I've been watching Dragon Ball Z and I'm like I'm kind of like Vegeta, but I just the thing that bothers me, the thing that I feel so many retail traders get wrong is how they try and interpret information. They think any piece of information that I get can potentially be useful to me, and they just eat it all up. They go, I want to go and read on Reddit and do anything that people on Reddit say. And it's like, no, that's a effing terrible idea. The traders on Reddit are so bad. The traders on YouTube and the YouTube groups are even worse. And these guys on YouTube, like, maybe they've made money, maybe they haven't, but usually they're not really giving you true information. I try to focus on information that I know is factual. So I think that we pointed out a number of factual points on the Ukraine situation, right? And we talked about a couple of individual politicians. So we could see how, because the thing that's interesting about this, well, actually, there's going to be a bunch of knockoff effects. So if Russia really does invade Ukraine, number one, and it happens in January, February. That's a big but. That's a big if too. If it happens in January, February, I want to be long natural gas, right? I definitely want to be long natural gas. I wonder if we can find an ETF or some stocks that would be good natural gas stocks to be along here. Because things were pretty warm. That might flip on us. So that's the first thing, is that it's really going to affect natural gas and oil, would be the first thing. Second thing, would it affect the European stocks? I don't think so. Would it affect interest rates? I don't think so. But would it affect American politics? I really think so. So if Russia comes in and takes over Donetsk, because I think that what he's saying is that they would tolerate Russian presence in this disputed region, right? If that's how it goes, I think that a lot of people in the United States are going to be looking at that and being like, okay, this is the second big geopolitical loss that we've suffered under Joe Biden. You know what I mean? So, the Ukraine thing, the whole Ukraine thing, I think is a negative for Democrats, given how they're reacting. Like if their reaction was, we'll put boots on the ground, and they deterred Russia from doing it, then they could turn it into a positive. But I think that the current trajectory is probably going to be a negative for him and politically. So we want to look at some of these top, potential presidential candidates to see what positions they're taking on it right now. Because, like for instance, if it ends up being politically unpopular that the United States didn't get involved in Ukraine, and that's a little bit of a big speculation on my part too, admittedly. But if it does end up being unpopular for Joe Biden, that wouldn't really be very helpful for Tulsi Gabbard, for instance, right? Debating is a good mind exercise, no matter what the topic. Yes. What I'm working on here, GT350, is like, I need to be likable, right? I think that what happens is eventually you guys get tired of my shtick. I'm not cool enough. I need to be more cool. I need to be able to debate you guys without being an asshole about it. Is my problem, I think. Am I selling myself short? I don't think that I'm a naturally charismatic person. I think that's just an acceptance of reality. But it's also kind of like a realization that that's a place where I probably have a lot of room to grow. And we still got 10 minutes, by the way. And then it will be off to probability and machine learning and scripts. I have so many different things to do. Probably should spend a little bit of time doing each of them. Was there anything going on here through Twitter? Oh, so what's Discovery Trading Group here saying? And again, for contrast, here's the same curves like the we did. Oh, okay. Wait, we need to go back to his thing. He's probably talking about the flattening, huh? Forward Libor swap spreads continue to widen, pricing credit risk premium into the mid-curve. 7s and 10s spreads now firmly positive. Also note downward sloping benchmark yield and inversion in the back end. Oh, wow. Yeah, that is a big change. There's also pointing about the correlation breakdown between Ethereum and Bitcoin. Something's definitely going on here. I'm kind of, I don't know. Like, I'm really partial to the argument that the inflation is not, some of the inflation is going to go away, but that a lot of the inflation is going to stick around, and that it is going to necessitate that the Federal Reserve raise interest rate. I'm still very firmly that interest rates are going to rise, right? But the big question here remains, how is the larger economy going to react to that tightening? Is even 1 or 2 interest rate rises really such an ugly deal for the S&P 500? I don't know. The S&P having a 40-point drop was not on my list of scenarios for the day, right? That one was a pretty big surprise for me. I don't think that the move is like enough that I'm sitting here going like there must be something more fundamental going on that I don't understand. Like this could definitely be short-term liquidity concerns, gamma hedging, who knows what kind of activity. But the treasuries rising here today seems awfully ominous to me. And especially if they continue to do that tomorrow, then I'm really going to be like, Although if they rise all the way into the meeting, that sets up an even more interesting situation, because I was kind of anticipating that we would go into the meeting like with a lot of uncertainty. But if we go into the meeting with the market like saying, treasuries you can buy, then that could set enough people off sides that they could then sell when the Federal Reserve meeting option happens. Yeah, options OPEX is next week. It's, well, let's see here, the third Friday, right? Oh no, isn't it this week? Isn't it the 17th? Yeah, I'm not quite sure. Before we go here, let's go to Zero Hedge. Dun, 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 dun. Inflation is not a coincidence, it is a policy. No, I'm pretty sure that they did not intend this to happen. I think that the politicians have been really quite happy and cautious to keep things like deflationary. That's the thing that's funny. Liquidity crunch and volatility surge is coming in 2022. I totally see that. I see liquidity problems in the treasury markets. I mean, they're doing pretty good at 3,000 right now, but there are times where it looks really weird. Okay. Stocks, bond yields, and crypto are getting slammed, says Zero Hedge. All of a sudden, things just went a little bit turbo since the Bank of Japan warned of what is Bojo? That's Boris Johnson. Yes. Since Boris Johnson warned of a tidal wave of Omicron cases. All U.S. equity cash markets open, stocks were pummeled lower. Apple, the market's very foundation, was unable to get to $3 trillion in the pre-market and is failing back to unchanged. Bond yields plunged. Yes. And crypto took another hit. Okay, so let's just note that for crypto, like the situation to be like, oh shit, in Bitcoin, they need to dump below 4,700. Zero Hedge asks, is this a continued taper tantrum searching for Powell's new put strike? I don't know, but I'm glad that I don't know how I came to this conclusion. Like, I thought a lot this weekend, okay? I wasn't happy. I thought a lot about life and the stream and trading. Like, this trading is so hard. Is it really worth doing it? And one of the big things that I realized was that providing good, valuable content on the stream is more important to me than how much I make money from trading. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but I think that I need to put more of my focus into making the stream good. Part of how I make the stream good, though, is learning as much about the market as possible, right? That's what I think, why I think you guys follow me, right? Because nobody else talks about order flow in the way that I do. Nobody else pulls out math equations. That's where I can provide some good value, right? We should work on trying to provide that value to a more broad audience, right? That was the first thing. The second thing was I kind of realized like I need to be more cool. Like, you've been a little bit you're letting your anxiety get to the best of you, and it's probably not the most entertaining thing to watch. But then on that, those were like things that I kind of thought on Saturday, and then when I got to Sunday, I was like, well, should I really still try and be putting on a big trade for the FOMC and everything? And then I started reading about Morgan Stanley capitulating. And I thought, no, the market must be more complicated than that. Because if all of the analysts think that it's going to go this one way. So they said, oh, the reason that the yields rose was just because it was the first time that it was actually in line. I was like, okay, that's good theory. But now it's up here again today. Well, the best explanation for why it's up here again today is because the S&P 500 sold, right? And the weakness in the S&P 500 very much started when the weakness in the S&P 500 started. In fact, I would say the weakness in the S&P 500 started before it here in the Treasury. So that's still kind of the best explanation. But I also think that there's got to be an explanation in here that, the Federal Reserve getting more hawkish here at this point doesn't actually mean higher yields, at least not right away. It may be that the market throws a little bit of a fit here and then calms down and realizes things aren't such a big deal, and then yields rise. And that's why I'm thinking I might want to bide my time and wait until like January, February. Because if I try and take big gambles right now, we may just be getting thrashed around. So I'll leave you with that, guys. Be careful. Don't blow too much of your margin, all right? Because we might have some really great opportunities in January through May of this year. Okay. So I am going to go and work on some other things. I will see you guys tomorrow. In the meantime, stay profitable.